fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 263 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin. Joining us tonight, for the first time in a while, former co-host of the show, current ESPN producer. He is Eric Robinson, at _Eric_Robinson. Welcome back, Eric. I wish we could have you on under happier tidings, but I know you've said you've taken like a vow of Falcon silence because this team's annoyed you so much, but you've broken the vow just for this show, so we do appreciate that. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing as well as you possibly can be as a Falcons fan at this point. And I use that term loosely, fan. Like it's just I'm borderline disgusted with this team, but hey.
Yeah, I know you're not alone, and that's why we had you on. I figured this was we've watched a lot of bad Falcons football, you and I. Like you were here, 2018, 2019, like 2020. Adnan hopped in about that time too. So like we've seen a lot of bad Falcons football.
I hopped in 2018.
That's right, you were here too. Yeah. No, I didn't mean you hopped in 2020. Yeah. I meant like for all those years that I mentioned. Because as we all know, you're responsible for the teams falling off, right?
Yeah, I joined right as the team completely fell off. I think I joined a week after our last playoff loss.
That's right. Yep. So good luck, charm, Adnan Ikic.
I've never seen a single good Falcons season since I've joined the Falcoholic.
Oh my god.
Oh man, wow. Brutal stuff. But Adnan, welcome to the show as well, guys. He's at Say Which Way. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. It also, you talked about the vow of silence for Eric. It would be very funny if he just came on and refused to talk about the Falcons. He's just like, nope. Let's talk about that Cowboys game instead.
You know what, Adnan? You give me an idea here.
He just glares, and he just glares in the distance while we talk about all the problems with this team. But
sounds so bad, actually.
Yeah, we might have to depending on the outcome of this game, we might have to do that on this show permanently. But guys, welcome in. We're gonna try
about our fantasy teams.
Right. Yeah, my fantasy teams are doing great, so I'll have that conversation. But yeah, guys, welcome in. Appreciate everyone for hanging out with us tonight in the depths of losing streak. It's tough times for Falcons fans, but that's why we're here. We're here to commiserate with each other and try to help us get through what could be another very dark second half of a season. Right now, it's feeling very familiar, but as negative as it is, this is still a super weak schedule. They do still have an opportunity this week to get back to 500 going into the bye. And I do think that some of these problems that we've seen, that they can theoretically be fixable, theoretically speaking. I guess we'll see if they are actually fixable when the dust clears, and we'll talk about that. But before we dive in, guys, I want to bring you a real quick word from tonight's sponsor, betonline.ag. Folks, the last of the major pro sports leagues is off and rolling, and college basketball is firing up this week as well. BetOnline remains your top spot for all your live betting action and contests, whether that be the NFL, college football, UFC, NHL, college football, basketball, pretty much anything you could think of, guys. If it's in full swing, it's on BetOnline, and BetOnline is your number one source for your wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and now mobile access at any time. So head to that BetOnline website, betonline.ag, or check it out on your mobile device. And remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, well, it's been a minute since we've had you on, Eric. I think last time you were on, I can't remember if it was also dark times or if they were actually winning at that point, but it's definitely I think it was, yeah. So we were still relatively positive, and honestly, it's really been mostly positive until the last couple of weeks here. But it's taken a pretty sharp downturn, not necessarily just because they lost, but it's sort of the manner of how they've lost, and it's been extremely frustrating both times. So I'm sort of wondering, trying to get your sort of temperature reading. I know you're upset with the team, but what's your thoughts on this season so far? Certainly, in terms of the record, not super duper far off over what I was predicting, but how we've sort of arrived here, because I think you and I and Adnan all had them maybe at 5-4 at this point or something similar.
No, remember I had them getting off to a hot start and then having that cool down second half of the season.
Eric had them at 6-3. I was at 5-4, and you may have been. I think you may have also been a 5-4.
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah.
Because I don't think you had us with a losing record at this point.
Yeah, I think I had them down to 4-4 last week, and then I did have them beating the Vikings. So that would have been 5-4. So they're not like miles off of where we thought they'd be, but I think it's the sort of the manner of how they've been losing these games. But Eric, what are you thinking at this point about this team? What's your temperature check?
Being a Falcons fan, over time, you kind of sort of, I at least for myself, I try to put together this whole booklet of ways that they can lose games, and over the years, we've collected
a big ass booklet.
Right. We've collected a number of ways.
Encyclopedia. It's like this big.
Right. We can collect a number of ways of how they lose games. Losing game on not getting an onside kick properly, or actually scoring a game-losing touchdown. You added 2 new additions to that book this year. First one was losing to a rookie quarterback who had no reps whatsoever, and giving up almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in his first game. And then you have another addition where you lost the game to a guy who
Whoops.
Did we lose Eric?
I might have lost Eric there for a second. Yeah.
I thought it was
I know what he's about to say. Yeah. I know he's about to say. He's about to go on a rant about losing to Josh Dobbs, which
that was the best part.
I know. Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna have to restart the rant once we get Eric back here. But
I do want to say something funny about the Falcons, because the Falcons can't be normal. Oh, Eric, you're back. I'll say my funny thing afterwards.
Yeah, sorry, we lost you right when you were about to talk about Josh Dobbs. Yeah, you were about to talk about Josh Dobbs.
I'm sorry.
It's all
good.
But
yeah, going on.
Losing to a guy that just got traded half a week prior to the game.
Zero practice reps.
Zero practice reps. Didn't know his teammates' names. Didn't even know the damn cadence to the offense. Like, it's amazing.
He showed him on the sideline, just like practicing snaps before.
It was like they were drawing up plays in the dirt, like high school. Yeah.
I tweeted prior to Dobbs taking his first snap. I tweeted specifically, if they lose to a quarterback that literally just arrived off the street, like, this would just be another amazing feat for the team. And lo and behold, they lost to the Vikings and Josh Dobbs. What can you say about this franchise, man? I swear. It's embarrassing. It really is, on so many different levels. And this team just finds ways. I'm ready for them to give up 200 rushing yards to a punter. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I mean, we saw Dare Ogunbowale kick a field goal. Right. So, I mean, what's to say a kicker can't,
I'm ready. I'm ready for them to give up 2 touchdowns on fake field goals. I'm ready for it. It's bound to happen. It may happen this week. It may happen this week.
Roll it out. Yeah.
But not we have to add. I don't think this has been in the book yet, but we may have to add losing to a quarterback that literally just came back from a torn ACL.
Yes. First game back. Now, to Kyler's credit, he has been practicing for like 2 weeks or something like that. So it's not like he hasn't taken any reps. But yeah, and it's like the part of me, like, it sucks because I love Josh Dobbs. I was like, the Cardinals are doing him dirty. I was actually happy that he got traded to the Vikings, but I was like, I don't want him to play this week because he's better than Jaron Hall. And I think if Jaron Hall had played that entire game, the Falcons probably wouldn't have had much trouble.
You sure about that?
I think so. Yeah. I want to give credit to Josh Dobbs because
Hall did drive him down to inside the 5 on his first drive.
That's true. But the defense held strong. The defense held strong on that one. But I don't know that any other quarterback in the NFL could do what Dobbs did, like, with no practice. And we know he's like, what, a rocket scientist or something? Like, he's legitimately like a genius. So it's like he was probably the only guy in the NFL that could pull off something like that, shy of maybe like some of the NFL's like best quarterbacks, just sort of freestyling. So like, I do want to like give the respect to Josh Dobbs because I love Josh Dobbs, but Why did it? I didn't want it to be against the Falcons. That can we not do that? Like Dobbs. Like I took him on my dynasty team. I like put all this faith in him, and then he comes and burns us in the biggest spot, But if only I had started him in my dynasty team this week, I probably would have been a lot happier about that outcome. But it was rough. But it's like at the end of the day, the defense had their worst game, and we're gonna talk about the defense because they've been playing way more zone lately, which I don't understand because they were playing super well in man coverage, and then they've played way more zone the last couple of weeks, and lo and behold, they've been having all these coverage busts. So we'll talk about that too. But
I'm thinking, like, does the Grady Jarrett absence play a big part of that? Do they not trust the defensive line, which has already had trouble sacking the quarterback, but hasn't had trouble getting pressure? For some reason, they can't convert pressures into sacks. But is it something where they're sort of overcorrecting because Grady Jarrett's out? And I mean, you can't really downplay the absence of Grady Jarrett at all because he is, the best player on your defense. He's the heart and soul of this team right now. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the defense is just completely taking a nosedive. And I wouldn't have been surprised if this was the case in years past, where Grady Jarrett was the only player on the field like that was worth a damn on defense. But this year, you made that investment. You brought in all those guys to the point where you're not supposed to take this nosedive even if you lose your best player, because I mean injuries happen in the NFL. So I've definitely been very disappointed with the performance of the defense the past couple of weeks, to say the least.
I'm sorry. Okay. I hate to be the guy that do this. All right. I'm going back to that trade deadline, and I'm saying you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Well, is Contavious Street not enough for you, Eric?
It was not enough. Absolutely, he was not enough. No.
Look, and Contavious Street had like a great debut. Don't get me wrong.
Great game.
Yeah.
Great game. But if you follow me on Twitter, you would know that during the trade deadline, I was adamant about adding an impactful edge rusher. Whether it was Sweat, whether it was Chase Young, someone, because this team can get to the quarterback, but they can't rack up sacks. And if you also follow me on Twitter, you also know I don't give a damn about pressure rate. I don't care about pressure rate. This past Sunday was a reason why I don't care about pressure rate. You can get to the quarterback, but it's all about getting them down to the ground. Like, that doesn't matter to me because you have quarterbacks in the league that are capable of breaking tackles, breaking sacks, and making plays with their legs. To me, pressure rate is one of the most worthless stats in football. I'll be quite honest with you. And this past Sunday was quite evident of it. They were able to get to Dobbs, but how many sacks?
They had 4 sacks, and they missed like 5 more.
They literally could have had 8 or 9.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where I felt like their lack of activity or their lack of urgency at the trade deadline cost them Sunday. Because I get it, we all know the story. They put a little 3rd round pick out there for offer for Montez Sweat. Cool. You let the Bears come in and swoop him by just offering 1 second round pick. And even by you allowing that, you didn't even force the Bears to drop the price up. You made it easy for them. They just came in and offered 1 pick and they got him. You didn't even try to go after Chase Young. Granted, I get he has an injury history. Cool, understandably, but you can't sit here and tell me the Niners needed him. The Niners didn't necessarily need him, and they got him.
Yeah. Well, it's surprising how cheap he ended up being. It seems like there really wasn't much of a market for him.
They just threw away a 3rd round pick for a guy that they're only going to use for 8 games. You mean it's the Falcons couldn't do that? I'm sorry. Like, this is why you need a difference maker at the most important position on defense. You can have guys, you can have solid veterans at that position, but I'm telling you, the only way you're able to win in this league is having true difference makers at the edge position. And we saw it Sunday. This is why the Eagles are the Eagles. This is why teams like that. This is why Michael Parsons is constantly in Defensive Player of the Year talks, because when you have that guy, like if you have a TJ Watt or anyone of that nature, it makes so much of a difference. Look at how many games TJ Watt closed the game by himself this year against the Ravens. Him and Alex Highsmith got a key forced fumble on the final drive of the game against Baltimore. Michael Parsons, going back to that Chargers game-winning drive on the line, he got a key sack. Next play, you got an interception to close out the game. This is why you have those type of guys. And I felt like the Falcons did not do what they needed to do. They were complacent, which this franchise has so much of a history of doing, and it bit them in the ass on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think by all accounts, the Falcons were basically offering a second for Montez Sweat, and then the Bears swooped in with what's basically a first-round pick based on where they're going to be drafting, and the Falcons weren't willing to throw in another day 3 pick to get the deal done, or a day 2 pick. I don't think they would have taken. I don't think they would have taken a day 3 pick. It would probably have required another day 2 pick, but the reason why I think they didn't is because technically they can't count the Ridley pick as a day 2 pick yet. I think if that one had solidified itself as like a day 2 pick, they probably would have been more willing to do it. It is on track to be at least a third at this point, so that's good news. But because quarterback is not settled, they couldn't give up more. I think that's ultimately the answer. But because they need those picks to potentially trade up for a quarterback. And again, that's an indictment of a different part of the team. But I do think they were serious in pursuing Montez Sweat. They didn't pursue Chase Young, as far as we know. So that one is obviously,
why
questionable.
not?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I'm way more upset about the Chase Young just because, that's a very high second rounder that the Bears gave for him, and that's a lot to outbid. But Chase Young was a third. Atlanta's third is better than San Francisco.
It was a comp third, so it was basically a fourth.
It's a comp, a pick that doesn't even exist technically at this point.
Yeah,
there's no plan for it.
Yeah, that's one where I feel like we'd be feeling a lot better if the team, threw a third rounder, because you were willing to throw a third rounder at Sweat. Why not at Chase? I get the injury risks. The injury risk is there, but it's the NFL. There's sort of an injury risk with a lot of players, and I get it. He's coming off a torn ACL, but Chase Young has looked good this year.
Yeah,
he hasn't looked like the second overall pick Chase Young from way before, but he's looked like a very good pass rusher over there in Washington. And Washington their problem was not that defensive line. Their problem was not that pass rush this season. Their problem is, a line of a different variety on the offense. But yeah, I think I'm much more upset about not getting Chase Young, because that's a guy that could have been a difference maker this year and moving forward.
Yeah, and you can't sit here and tell me that based on what we saw on Sunday, that having that guy on defense would not have made a difference.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would have definitely thrown a third round pick at Chase Young, just because the reason that I'm guessing they weren't as in on Chase Young is the injury history, like you said, Eric, and because Young has a tendency to freelance, and I think Ryan Nielsen doesn't like that. Like he doesn't like that at all. Now I would say for the price of a third round pick, it's worth the risk. Like, see if you can get him in the building and just coach him up, because it's Chase Young. But that's probably why they were less interested, just because this is like a very, I don't think it's a good reason, but I'm just saying.
but look at this entire conversation, and you can make so many indictments on this, front office and this team building just based off of this one singular conversation. For one, the lack of pass rushers, the fact that they don't have that impact guy. For two, the fact that you can't really make that trade for Montez Sweat because you need a quarterback, because this team is missing a quarterback that they have just been punting on the past few years. And for three, you spent a second rounder, a quality second rounder, on a guy you were hoping would help fix your pass rush in Arnold Ebiketie last year.
Don't even play him.
Who's not even out there playing right now. And I get it. There is some scheme stuff involved in that. But if he was truly a difference maker, he would sort of find his way onto the field. I feel like right now that's that's been a wasted pick. And the issue is we've had a lot of wasted picks 3 years in. I'm not really judging this past draft class because it's way too early. But 2021 and 2022, you go back and look at some of those players that were taken in those classes, and there's a lot of misses. And there's a reason why this team had to go out and spend as much money as they did in free agency, because, the draft classes have not looked very good so far.
Yeah. No, the draft classes haven't panned out and yet. I mean, we're obviously it's probably too early for the 2022 class to know much. I think with 2021, we're starting to get a better idea. But I mean, some of the early returns obviously aren't super duper encouraging. I mean, Jalen Mayfield, obviously a huge miss. Richie Grant doesn't seem like he's going to be a long-term starter for this team. He's kind of
Creed Humphrey was right there.
Don't get me started on Creed Humphrey. Adnan, okay? I just am vindicated that, some smart people were also in on Creed Humphrey.
In the building. People in the building.
Yep.
We're pounding the table for Creed Humphrey.
So we weren't alone on that, but it is frustrating. But, we knew Terry Fontenot was a pro personnel guy and that the draft was going to be somewhat new to him. And to his credit, I think that he's been okay in the draft, but he's nailed the free agency stuff. So, and the veteran trades, like Jeff Okudah, that trade's amazing. He's scoured the waiver wire or scoured other leagues for talent like D. Alford, Nate Lamon as a UDFA, Lakeil London is starting to come on. I'm willing to give Fontenot some more time to get a handle on the draft, because I think he's shown that he's making more good moves overall than bad. To me, it's the coaching, because Fontenot's bringing in the players that Smith and Dean Pease and now Ryan Nielsen are saying these are the guys we need. It's not just Fontenot picks guys and says, okay, here you go, Smith. So I think to some extent we should be pointing the finger at the coaching staff. And some of it's just really bad timing, right? They take 2 edge rushers for Dean Pease defense in 2022, and then Dean Pease retires immediately and they change schemes. So it's wow, that sucks. Now you should still be able to get something out of those guys, right?
If you're not going to be aggressive and trade for a veteran, then play the guys that you have. You're not being aggressive on that front, and then you're not playing the 2 youngsters that you have. Yeah. You're essentially just saying, hey, you know what? We're going to roll the ball out there with just a 37-year-old, a Bud Dupree that also has his injury history is just as bad as Chase. Yeah. If you really want to talk about it, and Lorenzo Park,
it's frustrating.
Also, we haven't said D'Angelo Malone's name since training camp.
No, he's not even playing though.
No, he's special teams only. And it's we know the type of guys Ryan Nielsen wants, right? Because he took one, Zach Harrison, Calais Campbell. Even Bud Dupree, I think, is kind of not necessarily one of the type of guys you would think Nielsen would go after. But it sucks that we're going to apparently just punt on the 2 edge rushers we took on day 2 last year. I hope we can get something out of Arnold Ebiketie. And I do think that D'Angelo Malone potentially has a future as a Caden Ellis type guy. And I think that's why they kept him around, even though he's not playing. But, we'll see. But to me, the bigger concern to me is we've emphasized the offense with our drafts, right? And and we've passed on quarterback and we've passed on edge rushers at the top 3 years now. And I know, Eric, when we've had you on, we were pounding the table for Jermaine Johnson. We were pounding the table for these other guys. I mean, we were pounding the table for Justin Fields, seeing what we've seen from Justin Fields, maybe they were wise to pass. I still feel like he had a much better career here in Atlanta than he's had in Chicago, with probably the worst coaching situation for any quarterback over the first 2 years of his career. But at this point, it's we've seen the team prioritize these weapons for Arthur Smith's offense that just aren't. I mean, Drake London's maybe the only one you could argue that's being used correctly at this point. To me, that's the biggest issue. Yeah.
I still remember the amount of heat I got for wanting Brian Burns and Michael Parsons. And now I'm looking at the fan base
you're like sipping the tea over. I mean, you and I were like, we were both there on Brian Burns. Like we were like, I love this man.
Absolutely.
Now, in fairness to that one, we did get Chris Lindstrom instead.
We did,
but Chris Lindstrom's really good. But like,
but it was the Brian Burns is the next Vic Beasley was the one, like,
which was the lazy.
That was always
dumb. And we called it out. We have called it out. Yeah, exactly.
But
it's just
and lo and behold, look who called the Panthers to inquire about Brian Burns.
Yeah, well, of course.
I mean, how that works, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, well, I mean, are they going to tag him again? Because they still haven't signed him to a deal. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, does he even want? Does he want to go back? Like,
the tag is a 2 years maximum type thing, and I don't know. I don't think the Panthers cap sheet is looking very, great. I think they are a little bit in the red. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I'd have to check.
Basically, if they tag Brian Burns again, it will be a very, very difficult thing for them to do without reaching a long-term deal.
And I want to put this out there while we're on the subject. Like right now, I believe there's about 12 teams that are projected to have more cap space than the Falcons. The Falcons are going to have I think they're projected according to what's the?
I got the numbers for you right here. Okay.
I think they're at like close to like 50 million or something like that. So there's like a dozen teams ahead of them that are projected to have more, and about half of those teams could use an edge rusher.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the market is starting to dry up a little bit. Rashawn Gary got his deal. Then now Montez Sweat. Not only was he traded, but he got his deal.
Yeah.
Chase Young is likely going to get something this offseason. We'll see what the Vikings do with Danielle Hunter. But what the Falcons backed themselves into a corner with by not getting a guy in their building now you're having to go into the offseason with an edge rush class that's probably going to be less than what you thought it was going to be, because a lot of these guys are likely going to get signed. I would not be surprised if Hunter gets an extension before the season is over with, and that's one less guy on the list. So now you're probably going to have to overpay for a Carl Lawson or someone like that, simply because you were not aggressive during the trade deadline.
Yeah, and they didn't get it
taking one in the first round may not be an option because you need a quarterback.
Gotta get a quarterback, yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, if you trade up, then taking one in the second round isn't an option because you need that as ammunition.
Yep.
Yeah. I just want to say for those that the OGs know. Okay.
We'll sign Tannehill.
That's right. Yeah, that'll fix our quarterback problem. Yeah. No, the OGs know. Okay. Now that he's been playing super well, I was all over the Tuli Tuipulotu bandwagon. Okay, I just want everyone to remember how much I was caping for Tuli in this offseason. Okay, and now he's blowing up with the Chargers. So just saying, that was my guy, right? So if they just listen to me, Eric, with Creed Humphrey and Tuli, we'd be good. We'd be cruising right now. So no, I'm just kidding. And Justin Fields also, but yeah, I don't know how that would have worked out. That might have been sketchier. I'm not sure.
I feel like it will be working out better than Kyle Pitts.
Well, and that's where I go back to is like, I'm not upset with the Kyle Pitts pick. I still think Kyle Pitts can be a great player in this league, but he's not being deployed that way. Like they've turned him into a slot receiver. Like it's like, and it's, I don't know why you think that's his best role. Like making him block linebackers and defensive ends and that's like, I don't know why he's not playing outside. It's like he's no like we heard all this in the offseason about like, oh, he's going to play more outside. He can be their effective wide receiver too. Essentially, that's why they're not going to spend a lot at wide receiver. And he's taken like 2 snaps outside like in the last several weeks. He's just playing the slot. Like he's playing the slot and playing some inline. Like why isn't he like destroying corners on the outside?
Like, a lot of variables.
You're running an end around with Jonnu on the 2-yard line with Pitts lined up in line blocking.
Variables.
And it's like Michael Pruitt's on the other side blocking. It's like, why isn't Michael Pruitt on the play side? Because he's the one that actually blocks.
Why isn't Kyle running the end around?
Well, there you go.
You guys just don't get it. Our coach knows. He's smarter than you.
But like Kyle Pitts would be too obvious, Eric. That's what we don't understand. That's what we don't get. It's like it would be too obvious. Yeah.
4 inches taller than Jonnu. He can stretch for that.
He could have just put his arms out over the line of scrimmage. He could have dunked it.
You would think so, but no. Next question.
Yeah, no, I just like, it's like, and man, this is a gross oversimplification of it, but it's just like, I don't understand. It's like Arthur Smith is so afraid of like, oh, well, teams are going to be ready for Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and Drake London, so we're just not going to target them. It's like, why are they here exactly? So what if they're prepared for them? So what if they're prepared for them?
Do you know how good Bijan Robinson is off the ball?
He opens up so much for other players, Adnan. Like,
but also that just like makes me think. It's like, what if everyone playing the Chiefs knows that Travis Kelce is getting the ball? It's like, what if they just stop throwing the ball to him as a result? Everyone playing Miami knows Tyreek Hill is getting the ball. Everyone knows Justin Jefferson's getting the ball. Everyone knows that Christian McCaffrey is getting the ball.
Yeah.
$20 says Sunday, the first play of the game is a stretch run with Bijan that goes for like 2 yards.
Well, yeah, because and like
we open up every game now.
Yeah, but it's like they're not. The tight ends aren't blocking as well as last year. That's been a big problem. They don't have Parker Hesse. He's on IR. That's been a big loss for them. They don't have Keith Smith. That's been a big loss for them right now. Like, they're not blocking up the outside runs well, and they're just continuing to do the outside zone, and it's like not working. And that's been part of it. Like, they're not adjusting or running. Like, I think when they've actually run inside zone, it's been pretty effective. Like, they've created some holes when they have run some power stuff, mix in some counters and things like that. And like, I think it's been fairly successful, but it's like, it's just, oh, well, Bijan's in, we're going to run outside zone. Oh, okay. Tyler's in, we're going to, run inside zone now. Like, it's just so gross. Like, it's just so boring. Like, and then it's like, it'll be bored. Like, all the run plays are just so vanilla. And then we'll get like Jonnu Smith end arounds in the red zone. It's like, oh, well, now you're ready for the basic play call. Now we're gonna throw the tight end, jet sweep.
The field is condensed, and all 11 defenders are within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. Now you want to do that? Okay, man, whatever. If there was ever a time to start the game off with a play action deep shot, it was that game. It's Taylor Heineke's first game as a starter. Why not? Loosen the defense up. They're all stacking 7 or 8 guys in the box every game. They're looking for the run. You're starting every game with the same goddamn run call.
And the thing is, like, we're not here, this isn't a designed witch hunt against Arthur Smith. Like,
no,
this criticism is here, because it's deserved. I mean, we on this show have defended Arthur Smith a lot over the past 2 years. I feel like we've defended him more than like the average fan cares. And I think right now we're getting a lot of shit for it. So thanks a lot, Arthur Smith. Now we're getting shit for it.
Thanks for throwing us under the bus, Arthur.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we have been patient and we have preached patience, as you should be. You're not succeeding firing a head coach after 1 year. After 2 years, we said, all right, lack of talent. We did not, we still won 7 games. This year, we came in and we're like, all right, this has to be the year. Things have to culminate. Things have to come together. Arthur Blank came in front of us at training camp, year 3 of the 3-year plan. And then Arthur Smith comes out and does this. And it's like, it just sort of feels like a betrayal of just like, of the patience and the trust that we had in him, not just as, members of the media, but first and foremost as fans. And now it's like, this is your year 3. This is the culmination, the exact same thing, being in the exact same spot that we were in last year. And we'd be in a worse spot if the schedule was slightly more difficult. Yeah. You have been handed the easiest schedule in the NFL. You have been gift wrapped the easiest division in the NFL, and you are absolutely squandering it. And all, like, in the middle of that, you're going to war with the media, and it's just the bad semantics of, all right, like, your team is struggling, you're fucking hanging out with Pat McAfee every single Friday. It's like do what you want with your free time, but that's just sort of a bad look. Like, Arthur Smith has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, inside this fan base and outside this fan base. And I mean, yeah, like the criticism, the heat he's feeling right now, he's sort of brought it upon himself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like with Dan Quinn, the one thing you could always fall back on is like Dan Quinn was just such a good guy. Like everybody liked Dan Quinn. Like even when he was losing, it was like personally you still liked Dan Quinn, and it was like, man, I really wish he could turn this around because he like I wouldn't like the players loved him. Even when they were losing, the players were like crying after he got fired because like
he fell on the sword every single time.
Yeah, and it's like you couldn't hate the man. It just wasn't working out. So it was like, okay, we got to move on. But it's like I personally never had like animosity towards Dan Quinn personally. Arthur Smith has become the most unlikable coach in the NFL. Like somehow he's surpassed Bill Belichick. Like look around X, Twitter, whatever the hell it's called these days. And he's just getting blasted by national accounts, by obviously the fantasy community. I mean, that's sort of a given. I mean, no matter what with him, but like,
deserved, yeah,
but like
that right but there
like
is.
He's going after Kurt Warner for what was really like a well thought out and not at all inflammatory like critique of that game. That was like it was not at all inflammatory. And he's like, oh, I don't care what he has to say. I'm sure he gets paid a lot of money. It's like, maybe you should care because he knows what the hell he's talking about. And like, I know you don't want to hear it from people outside the building, but like whatever you're doing inside the building ain't working, bud. So maybe you should bring in somebody else. Maybe you should listen to what people have to say, because it's like you look at all these trends and like it sort of boils over into our question about can these things be fixed? Like Drake London's not playing and Kyle Pitts is getting like 4 or 5 targets. What the hell are we doing? Like, if Drake London's not in the game, where are you sending these targets? All to Jonnu? Like throwing dump offs to Tyler Algier? Like, and like I like Jonnu and I like Tyler Algier. I think both of those guys are good players in this offense. But Kyle Pitts was the guy you took over a franchise quarterback, and he's a bit player on your offense. Like he's not even your wide receiver too. Like that's how little he's being utilized. It's like.
Look, I'm tired of dump offs to the flats to Tyler Algier. He's not shaking anybody, man. Where's
Bijan? Like that's what he does.
Out, please. He's not shaking. That first defender is going to get him to the ground. Can we just?
Tyler Algier had 2 catches for -9 yards this past game.
Stop it. Please. Yeah. It's disgusting.
He has no chance. Like, and Tyler Algier, if you get him a pass, like when he's past the line of scrimmage on like a wheel route or something, he's actually shown he can like break some tackles when he gets that head of steam. But like throwing passes to Tyler Algier in the backfield is a recipe for disaster because he's not dynamic. And we've known this. It's never been a part of his game. Tyler Algier is a bruiser and a guy that's got really good contact balance and he can break a few tackles maybe, but he can't break tackles when he's standing still to catch a football out of the backfield. Like Tyler Algier is completely useless if he has to stop his feet. Whereas Bijan, when he stops his feet, he's dangerous because he can explode out of that stance. He scored touchdowns on dump-offs like that where he's had guys all over him and he just escapes because he's Bijan Robinson. He's the guy you took in the top 10 to take this rushing attack to a different level. And we're still giving half the work to Algier, who, like, I have nothing against Algier. I think he's a perfectly good running back too, who we've seen if he needs to step in and be the starter because of injury or whatever, he can do it and he can get 1,000 yards. But like, he's not Bijan Robinson. Why did we draft Bijan Robinson if we're gonna give most of these like? I just don't get it, man. And it's maybe it's not the biggest problem with the offense. Maybe the distribution of carries isn't that big a deal. I'm willing to admit that, but it's just the little things that stack up. It's like we're not utilizing Kyle Pitts, who we drafted with the 4th overall pick. We basically turned him into a big slot, which is like,
but
that's not a valuable position on your offense. You barely like. Why isn't he playing outside?
It does matter that 2 of the 3 years you have spent a top 10 pick and 1 year a top 5 pick on guys you're not utilizing. Like, these are valuable fucking picks in the NFL. Like, to pick someone number 4 overall, especially in 2021 in that draft class, that is looking like it's going to shape up to be an all-time great draft class. And I mean, the guy you got 1,000 yards year 1, great. Since then, hasn't broken 500 yards. Number 4 overall. highest drafted tight end of all time.
Yeah.
And, he's just being used like your run of the mill tight end 15, like average player at that position.
Yeah, he's like Jacob Tamme. No offense to Jacob Tamme, perfectly good tight end, but not a 4th overall pick. Like, Kyle Pitts should be the centerpiece of your offense. Like, Jamar Chase was taking a pick after him.
Yeah, you passed on Jamar Chase.
Which I'm sure he wouldn't be using even if we had Jamar Chase. So
you passed on Michael Parsons. You passed on Justin Fields. You passed on J.C. Horn. You passed on all of these incredibly talented players for a guy that you're not really using. And I mean, yeah, it's damning. It's like it's inexplicable and it's unexplainable. And if I cannot sit here and try to give you a good reason for why we're not using Kyle Pitts and why we're not using Bijan Robinson the way we should be, because these guys should be the focal points of your football team.
I mean, it should be 7 to 8 targets for each guy, like minimum. Like and like, I mean, I get that like last year it was a low volume passing attack, so the raw number of targets isn't always the best thing. But if we're talking about like target share, I mean, the only guy that's getting like a legitimate target share in this offense, like their draft status sort of should dictate, is Drake London. Like Drake London's the only one. And like, it's just bizarre.
If the Falcons are going to go forward with Arthur Smith as head coach, I'm going to need him to relinquish that play sheet going into next season. Like I need another play caller. I need someone else. Like
I think if you do that, you're firing him though. Like,
well, that's
please finish your thought. Yeah, sorry.
Like, you're still the head coach. You're still in charge of the team, but play calling responsibilities, I need you to relinquish that. Yeah. I do. Because we've seen it around the league where coaches who try to juggle that responsibility of being a head coach and a play caller, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you fall flat on your face. I think at this point right now,
look at Dan Quinn.
Yeah, like it doesn't work for everybody. It just because it works for Kyle Shanahan and at times, Sean Payton and those, it doesn't always equate to wins. It doesn't always equate to offensive production. And I think at the very least, if they're going to go that route, if he's still going to be the head coach going into next year, regardless of what happens for the rest of the season, they need a new play caller and they need some type of duty refinement at quarterback coach. I don't know what Dave Ragone's responsibility actually is on game. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's part of, scripting plays and things of that nature, but I also get a sense that he doesn't do much of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I agree. Yeah. And to me, it's like, I'm not even giving him that benefit. And like, if you're saying your offensive head coach that we brought in to orchestrate this offense needs to give up calling plays, and I think it's like, okay, we need to get rid of him so we can bring in another offensive head coach, because that's the only way we're going to have a chance at someone legit.
Especially if they go the route of drafting a quarterback that's going to need development. I don't see it coming from either one of them. I don't see it coming from Ragone. I don't see it coming from Arthur Smith because, of course, his past, he doesn't have much of a pass in terms of, drafting a young guy and bringing him up. Same with Ragone. I don't see it from either one of them. So I'm going to have to, that's going to have to be modified as well. But
yeah, no. I also don't know if, and this isn't just an Arthur Smith thing, but there is an ego in play there too. Like an offensive minded head coach who probably thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, having to relinquish play calling duties. I feel like that's a tough ask for someone like that. And yeah, I'm with Kevin. I think if it comes down to that, which it looks like it is, move on to the next one, because
this is where you need to have that owner in place that's like, hey, you know what? I don't give a damn. You either relinquish the play calling duties or you're out of a job completely.
Well, I just don't think they're going to get. I don't think they're going to get like Ben Johnson to be the OC. Like if they want that guy,
no, but something has to give.
Yes,
like there's no longer we're trying to get the right guys for our scheme. You have the guys now. You have them now. You have your tight end. You have your stud wide receiver one. You have a loaded backfield. You have your guys now.
Yeah,
and it's still
extremely bad. Like 25th in scoring.
Yes.
Like yeah, I mean
it's
nowhere close. And 30th in the red zone. So that's inexcusable. So like,
but also the other issue with quarterback, and let's say we go the route of drafting a quarterback, this will be them going into year 4 of the Arthur Smith, Terry Font, no partnership, and they sort of have to win now a little bit, and that's not can you really expect that with a young quarterback? And at the same time, does Arthur Smith deserve to get a young quarterback? Has he shown enough to you that he has earned the right to now be given another because you give him a young quarterback, that's a 3-year investment right there.
You're buying time at that point.
Yep, because you're not, we're not expecting really 10, 11 wins with a rookie quarterback. It's happened before. It happened in Atlanta in 2008, but you can't really, go into it. That's more of an anomaly versus the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, does he deserve that? Does he deserve that sort of latitude? And do you as a franchise trust him to now take this franchise to a better place within the next 3 years with the right selection and with the ability to develop a young quarterback? Because, you trade up, you're talking about giving a lot of picks. And if that quarterback does not work out, you're talking about setting your franchise back.
Yeah,
very much.
I think we're all in agreement that there's likely going to be a new face under center next year. And we're probably going to have our 4th different starting quarterback in as many years going into 2024. But I think the back half of the season is probably going to dictate which direction they go. If it's a fairly competitive team, they end up 9-8 and they miss out on the playoffs by 1 game. I think they may go that Justin Fields route and getting a guy that's fairly young, but he's got some experience under his belt, and I feel like you can win now with the right pieces with Justin Fields. You don't really have to worry about what Adnan was saying, the 3-year plan. That 3-year plan is already out the window with Justin Fields. Like he's matured enough as a quarterback to know that he can, you can build around that. But if it's another situation where they're 7-10 again, and if Arthur Blank, if he's open enough to give him another year, I think at that point you're probably going the young quarterback route at that situation. If I was him, because again, like Adnan said, that buys me time. That gives me more time more job security at that point.
And trading up for a quarterback is just one of the options. Like
it's going to be tough this year too.
Yeah, there may be some quarterbacks on the trade market. A name that we haven't really talked about yet. The guy we're playing this Sunday. Maybe Kyler Murray's on the trade market. Who knows? Like if Arizona is bad enough, if Arizona gets that number 1 overall pick, will they pass on Caleb Williams? Will they be like, all right, we're taking Caleb Williams, who, the consensus seems like he is, that next generational guy. And all of a sudden Kyler Murray comes available. This is not the regime that drafted Kyler Murray. This isn't the head coach that drafted Kyler Murray in Arizona. It's, maybe you go that route, and I would absolutely not be against it. I know there's going to be people who are, he's too expensive, like whatever, like any good quarterback is going to be expensive. Like, I don't care. Like I want a franchise quarterback. I don't care about the cap space. If the cap space is going to get you what we have right now, which is a team that will never be able to reach its ceiling because, the play caller isn't good enough, like quite frankly. So, I mean, but that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have over the coming months, and that's going to be a discussion for the offseason. It's still too early right now. Right now, Taylor Heineke is the starter on Sunday, as has been announced by the team earlier this week. But there are going to be some guys. Maybe Dak comes available. Kirk Cousins was a name we were talking about, but after the Achilles injury, I don't think that's going to be as likely. Stay the fuck away from Ryan Tannehill. I do not want to go into next
Please,
if that's his plan, fire him right now, because that's not going to fly.
Oh my God.
That's not going to fly at all. You can't convince me that Arthur Blank would agree to that. So I don't think that he would. So yeah. No, but let me get to some donations here, and then we'll sort of talk about if we think this can be fixed or if we think this is just going to be a sinking ship this year before we sign off. But we got George. What's up, George? With the $3, says, took a few days to settle down and really think about this team. It's becoming a meme at this point with how much Arthur Smith doesn't want Pitts to work. I think Blank and Fontenot could lose the team if he doesn't replace Smith after this season. Pitts will refuse to sign. I mean, yeah, why would Pitts come back here? They're complete, like they're almost ruining his career. Like they're making him into a bit player. And then George also adds, we should get Arthur Smith on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast because he's obviously drunk as hell. His offensive genius is running a jet sweep to Jonnu Smith inside the 5 with Kyle Pitts blocking Daniil effing Hunter. Serious 4D chess there. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's a tough one. And I will point out on that note, the drive where the Falcons had the most success running the football at the end of the game, where they ran 12 plays and 11 of them were designed runs. One was a Heineke scramble. They didn't play condensed, like the goal line package, like what they did on that drive. They actually played spread, like they spread the defense out, and then they had tons of success. So I'm just saying, like,
how that works.
You don't have to line up in heavy every time. Like, you can just play 12. You don't have to play 22, 23 personnel to run the football. Like, especially when you've got, I mean, I know Drake London wasn't out there, but like, again, like, why aren't we seeing Kyle Pitts on the outside drawing double? Like, you're telling me Kyle Pitts on the outside and the goal line isn't taking the attention of 2 defenders away? Like, I thought this was the reason we're not throwing to him, is so he could draw attention. Instead, you got him in line where he's blocking. The defense don't give a shit about Kyle Pitts blocking. Like,
have we seen one like goal line fade to Pitts?
No, I think we've seen one goal line fade all year, but it wasn't to Pitts. It was to London.
Since he's been drafted, I don't think we've seen one goal line fade to Pitts.
I don't know if it was a fade, but the touchdown against Cincinnati, I know that was specifically designed, and he caught it. He scored it, and I guess, Arthur Smith said enough of that. But
yeah, no, they'll expect that now. We can't do that again. Yeah, that worked too well. They'll be prepared for it next time. I don't know if it was
technically a fade route, but they did. They did scheme up a specific pass to Kyle Pitts from, I think, the 1 or 2 yard line against Cincy last year. It worked, and then we haven't really seen it since.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. We got DJ Stud 1987, great name, love it.
Everyone in the chat is saying variables.
Yeah, variables, Kevin. Yep, I'm. There's too many variables. I can't even keep track at this point. DJ Stud with the $5. Thank you, DJ. He says, I'm not sure why we aren't talking about Rich McKay and Arthur Blank not being able to bring in good head coaches. We were choking on leads and losing to mediocre quarterbacks long before Arthur Smith got here, and we need a coach like Dion who can change the culture. I mean, Dion's probably still a couple years away from the NFL, but we'll see. There's obviously something about what he's doing that's working. I mean, he turned Colorado from like the worst Division I team in college football to like average in 1 year. So he's doing something over there, but I think he's still a couple years away from getting an NFL shot, personally.
I also don't think he's interested in the NFL, really.
No, not yet. Yeah, not yet. No. I think he wants to work college football for a little bit longer. And I think he's smart to do that instead of going into the NFL too early. Because we know black coaches don't get very many chances in the NFL. So if he comes to the NFL too early and burns out, like they'll write him off. So take your time, Dion, until you're ready.
Also, I think he's just like, I think he cherishes the ability to work with those young men. Because, I mean, you can see it, you can see him on the sideline. I feel like there's just some people who are like that where, the best comes out of them by bringing the best out of young men. And,
I don't think he wants to deal with a locker room full of millionaires. I think he enjoys molding young minds, young players, and getting them ready for that journey to the NFL. I think he enjoys that more than trying to tell a $45 million quarterback, where to throw the football.
Yeah,
But
you got to work your way up to that. I think that's smart of him to get his feet wet in college for several years and see if he wants to go to the NFL. We're not even sure that, like what you guys were saying, he may not want to do that yet. So,
but also like the other part of that tip is, Arthur Blank, Rich McKay, like, that's a pretty good point. Like, if Arthur Smith flames out, like, Dan Quinn had, we all liked Dan Quinn as a person, but overall, and he went to the Super Bowl, but Dan Quinn had 2 winning seasons in Atlanta, and how many years was he here? 6. Mike Smith was good. Mike Smith was good. He was a good head coach up until like the very end. Before that, Jim Mora. Before that, or Bobby Petrino. Like, the track record isn't really good there, but also we're not really going to be able to get rid of Arthur Blank. I don't know what. I let
Fontenot let Fontenot hire a coach. He didn't get it. He didn't really get a say in this one because they kind of came on approximately at the same time. So like, let Fontenot pick his coach. Why not? Like, because I'm not calling for Fontenot's head. I know some people might be, but like, I think Fontenot is legit. Like, I know the drafts haven't been perfect, but like, I think you can see what he brings to the table from like a pro personnel side, and I think that's his like elite
what they've got, what they've gotten out of Caden Ellis and Cordero,
Nate Landman, D. Alford. I mean,
Nate Landman, D. Alford, Jesse
Anyamata
Bates
has been a home run. I mean,
right. What he's gotten out of those guys, I think that's enough to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, hey, he's done. He's the guy that built his reputation on nabbing professional guys that are already in the league, veterans, not necessarily going the scouting route with collegiate players, but guys, him being able to pluck talent that's already within the league, and that's how he built that reputation. I think he's done enough at this point to say, hey, you know what, he's a keeper here. We can run with him.
I think so too. I think you keep Fontenot regardless of what happens with Smith, because he wasn't responsible for hiring Smith. Like I was saying, like they were brought at the same time. So
right.
I think you give Fontenot a chance to hire his own guy and see where that leads. But we got 2 more donations we'll get to real quick, and then I'll just sort of ask you guys if you think we can salvage this thing this year, or if this is a 2024 fix. But we got George Costanza with the $3. Arthur Smith be thrown to the flats to Algier. It's like he forgot the filth that was that Bijan shake in week 1. I think Arthur Smith might just be trolling us. We get it. You don't care about fantasy. Do you care about wins, though? I mean, yeah, that's the ultimate question, right? We got Jason Question with the $2. Nice to see Arthur Smith shave the 70s porn stash. Hopefully he'll stop appearing on the Pat McAfee show every week. Maybe Eric can do something about that live stream every time he goes on there.
Can't do anything. Pat McAfee has his own production team.
Eric, you have to like infiltrate. Yeah.
I will say it is starting to get a little annoying seeing him on there every week, because I've already was at a point where I'm like, I hate the idea of Aaron Rodgers being on there every week.
Right.
Now I'm really getting annoyed. Like, come on, man. Like, switch it up. You don't have to talk to Arthur Smith every damn week.
It's fine. Like, Arthur Smith, if this team was right now 7-2, like, go
right.
Go on the show, like, whenever you want. Like,
he's not that good of a coach to be on there every week. Like,
do whatever you want. If you're like 8-1, if you're 7-2, you're 4-5. Like, it's just like, I'm not saying that the team is losing because he's on the Pat McAfee show every week. I'm saying that the semantics look really bad. That your team is losing.
Your team is losing,
and you're shooting the shit with Pat McAfee every single Friday.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's rough. It's very rough, and I agree. I mean, it's just again, it's like he's just really gone out of his way to make himself just super unlikable. And that's part of it. It just isn't a good look. So we'll see if he continues making appearances. But we got one final donation from George. It says, I'm on the Eric Bieniemy train. The fact that he hasn't been giving a head coaching opportunity shows the Rooney Rule is just for show. I'm totally pounding the table for him. He's slowly turning Howell into a legitimate starter, future Pro Bowl caliber quarterback.
Yeah, he's probably next in line in Washington.
Oh yeah, he's going to be Washington's head coach. That's what I was going to say, George. Yeah, like I would if Washington doesn't hire him, they're fools.
I will be,
and then I will absolutely give him an interview, no question. But yeah, he might take over for Rivera before the season's over. So we'll see.
especially with Magic Johnson and that new owner group now, I would be surprised if Bieniemy's not the head coach in 2024 in Washington.
Yeah, I think he will be Washington's head coach, which does also take a major opening out of the equation. So I really think it's like the Falcons have a great shot at getting a top coach if they do move on from Arthur Smith. Because look, I mean, everything is in place. They just need to add a quarterback, and they need maybe a couple like the defense really needs that top edge rusher, but the defense is actually good now. Like the defense is not that far off. So like this is not
a lot of money.
Yeah, like, this is not a rebuild at this point. So
after cuts, they'll have, I think, more cap space than they did last season. And
quite possibly.
I mean, like it's a very, and I mean, Arthur Smith hasn't been fired yet. He still has the rest of the season, which is what we're about to get into. But, if it does come to that, Atlanta's a very attractive opening. Arguably the most attractive opening.
The Chargers
on the
is the only one.
The Chargers,
that I would say,
because of Herbert.
Yep.
But yeah, like everything's there, but the quarterback at this point.
Yeah.
And some offensive line pieces, arguably here and there.
Yeah, and I would just throw the bag at Ben Johnson, give the man whatever he wants, get him in the build, get him in here. But yeah, you're gonna have a hard time beating out the Chargers if they do move on from Brandon Staley, which they should. So,
man, hey, if you think Atlanta Falcons fans are like, calling for Arthur Smith's head or putting too much heat on Arthur Smith, you should see what Chargers fans are saying about Brandon Staley.
Yeah,
like they are fucking over that man.
Oh, and Commanders fans for Rivera. They are done with him too.
This is not a Falcons only issue. Yeah, we're not the only team. So, but yeah, I do think the Falcons would be near the top, which is another reason you might consider making a change. But yeah, I mean, Eric, what do you think? We mentioned a lot of things with Smith, but like these things, like utilizing Kyle Pitts more, utilizing Bijan more, like changing up the run scheme a bit. I feel like these are things that can change. Like there's not like anything that says that you can't just change the way you're doing things and fix those things. But I guess the question would be like, do you think that anything will change, or are they going to finish this season much like they have the last two at 7-10?
Look, man, when it comes to this franchise, that's a question that you have to that's a question that's been posed for numerous regimes under this. Like we asked that same question under Dan Quinn. And that's the one thing that bothered us with Dan Quinn. He was a guy that always took the bullet for the team, but he never made the right adjustments. He always stuck to the same game plan, even though it's not working, because he believed in it. And, it's like, come on, man, you gotta adapt. And Mike Smith was kind of sort of the same way as well. I'm holding out hope that he does, but I think this franchise as a whole needs an attitude adjustment. Like there's certain organizations right now that are like, look, if stuff is not working with your head coach is going to hear it. He's going to hear about it from within the organization. I don't think there's anyone in this organization right now that is honestly willing to check Arthur Smith and say, hey, get this shit together.
Yeah.
Arthur Blank is not that type of owner. I don't think Fontenot is that type of that type of GM as well. Like in Dallas, Jerry Jones is not afraid to say, what the hell is going on? Fix this now or else.
Yeah.
There's no one in this organization, in my opinion, that's willing to say, Arthur Smith, what the hell are you doing? Fix this now or else.
And I mean, I feel like that's a to add to your point, I feel like that's a greater conversation, a more macro conversation, just about the culture of the Atlanta Falcons, as a whole, not just now, but over the past few decades, and ultimately back to their inception of, does that sort of start at the top? And we all like Arthur Blank, but the team will ultimately take the personality of the owner to a certain extent. And I mean, the Falcons have always just been that franchise that, chokes, and that sort of that's not the franchise that's not cutthroat. The franchise that's not cutthroat enough to really do anything in the NFL.
In so many aspects, Adnan, when it comes to play calling, when it comes to getting, we've always made the case for, trades and things of that nature, draft picks and stuff of that nature. They don't have that attitude like, look, win or else. We got to do whatever it takes to win football games. And it bothers me. And that's why from the outside in, the Falcons have this perception as a very soft organization.
Deserved perception.
Right.
Very deserved perception.
And that's why
the reputation they've earned.
Right. And we're not getting rid of Arthur Blank. So people are like, oh, get rid of Arthur Blank, get Rich McKay. They're not going to do it. Like they're not going to
sell the team. He's got to sell the team.
Like, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. So like if you're calling for that or hoping for that to happen, it's not going to happen. So don't even pretend. Don't even pretend.
I am asking the question. I don't know what the fuck Rich McKay does. Like
I think he does mostly business stuff. Honestly,
his stuff is way off the field. Like it's
but also like that's Rich McKay is the perfect example of that. 2007, he cannot be the GM. He gets fired from being the GM, and instead of letting him go, Arthur Blank promotes him.
Yeah.
That's literally what we're talking about in a nutshell. Like you can't even you like this guy, as a person way too much to really make the necessary change. And they did bring in Thomas Dimitroff, but then they keep Rich McKay, who failed at his role with the Falcons. They keep him around. They keep Dan Quinn around for 2 years too long because they like him as a person too much.
Yeah.
Because Arthur Blank likes him as a person. Like, you have to separate the personal from the business. Feel like Blank has not done a good job of that.
Yeah. And to your point, and then even then for a while you had Pioli still in the mix. Yeah. And remember we had that time period where there were so many hands in the pot, and you're like, who's running this thing? Because it was so many faces in management. But again, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, that's why other organizations, other fan bases, other teams, they look at the Falcons and they just it's a punk team. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
That's why I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I'm saying give the keys to Fontenot and let him make the decisions, because I think I think he'll bring a fresh perspective. I think he's got his own plans, and I think Fontenot is a rising star in this business. He's not perfect yet. Like he's not on the level of like the NFL's top GMs yet, but I think of everyone they've assembled, I think Fontenot is the one that I would hit. If I had to pick one person in this organization to hitch my wagon to in terms of like coaching staff, front office, it would be Fontenot. And so that's why I'm saying, like, give the keys to Fontenot, let him build this thing the way he wants it. If it doesn't work, then fine, then you start over. But like, at least give Fontenot a chance to bring in his guy and see if we can do this thing differently.
There are organizations in the league right now, man. You can look at the Eagles with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, and you see their fingerprints on everything, and you see they're not afraid to do whatever it takes to get a win on Sunday. You look at the Steelers, their organization is built the same way. The Ravens, another organization built the same way. These are teams that we're either trying to be like or beat eventually. Yeah. So to not follow that formula is mind-boggling to me. I get it. You want to kind of sort of play chestnut checkers when it comes, but even at that point, even that strategy is like, yo, what the hell? Like it's so complacent. You're dragging your feet on things, and you're waiting for things to occur instead of making the necessary changes.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. And to be clear, like, I know people think Blank is a just super patient owner, and he is. Like, he is one of the more patient owners in the NFL. But there's never been a coach so far that Blank has hired that has stuck around after 3 seasons of not making the playoffs. So Well, I agree. Like, I think he could be a little bit more impatient. Like, but I don't think Arthur Smith survives the year if he does not make the playoffs. I think this is a playoffs or bust year. I don't think there's expectations that they have to be this great playoff team or win a playoff game or anything like that. But I think it's like, you got to make, like, we have the easiest schedule. This is supposed to be a better team. This is year 3 of the 3-year plan. You got to make the playoffs. I don't care if you make the playoffs at 9-8 or whatever the hell works but you got to make the playoffs. They've never, and I think he has to. Yeah.
If it doesn't, 2024 is do or die.
I would not bring him back if he doesn't make the playoffs. To me, he doesn't get another chance.
You might, but given the warm heart that we know Arthur Blank has, I can see Arthur Blank.
But that's exactly what you just talked about. Like, if this team misses the playoffs, like, that is exactly the complaint that we just.
I get it, but look how long he held on for Dan Quinn.
Yeah, but he likes Dan Quinn. Does he actually like Arthur? I don't know. I don't know if anybody likes Arthur.
I mean, stories say he does, but it was one of those things with Dan Quinn where you made the playoffs in 2017 after losing the Super Bowl, and then you took a step back for 3 consecutive seasons, and then it took you going 0-5 for you to say, okay, you know what?
Yeah. That's it. Well, he also made a Super Bowl, so like I think they were willing to give Quinn maybe extra leeway because I mean, like Blank had never seen this team make a Super Bowl before, so like. I can understand it. Like, we don't have to agree with it. And we were all saying, like, Quinn should not get 2020 because this is a bad situation. They're going to just go all out.
He shouldn't get 2019.
Well,
he also lost that goddamn Super Bowl.
We're not going to rehash this. We're not rehashing this tonight. Okay, we've got enough problems right now.
But if I'm an owner, yes, I'll give you credit for making it. But I'm also looking at you like you lost it in that way, and that plays a part in your job security, your job future, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's one of those where I don't know. I don't know. I just can't help but think about the late great Al Davis from the Raiders dynasty days, and just how ruthless he sort of was, and he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but at the end of the day, like, he won a lot. I think if he was like sort of, the owner of the team at that point, after that Super Bowl, I think he genuinely would have fired Dan Quinn and thrown a bag at Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
But that's just, I'm not saying that Arthur Blank was wrong to not do that, because, how many owners would, but
pretty much no one would.
Al Davis, he traded John Gruden.
I feel like Al Davis would. Al Davis
would, but how many others would have? I mean, probably not.
He got rid of Gruden. Gruden was winning games. He's like, you're not winning enough. I'm sorry, you got to go.
Yeah, but
he fired Callahan. Remember, Callahan made the Super Bowl his first year. They had a losing season the next year, and he was gone after 2 seasons.
Yeah, and Al Davis is one of the great owners in NFL history. Like him or not, that Raiders team won, and they won a lot back in those days. But this is sort of just a vent session because the owner is not changing. But I feel like we are all in agreement that we would like Arthur Blank to be a little bit more cutthroat and ruthless from that business end.
Yeah.
And that's my hope. Yeah, is that he learned, as many things as we can criticize Arthur Blank for, I do think he's learning. I think he learned from his dalliance with Watson that maybe you should not get involved with this. I think he also learned from Dan Quinn to not give guys like a do or die season, because guess what happens when you do that? Like, they screwed the team over.
They will mortgage the future.
Yes, and that's not what you want. That's not a good situation for anyone. It's not a good situation for your roster. It's not a good situation for your GM. It's not a good situation for your coach, because you're doing him a disservice. Like, it's better if you respect Arthur Smith. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you respect this team, you have this is the 3rd year. Like, I know people are saying the first 2 years were kind of a wash, because of the roster and all this, but okay, so they were a wash. You give him 2 losing seasons without him having pressure. I think that's fair. But this season, there has to be pressure. You can't just let him coast for 2 years and then give him 3 more years because the first 2 years were bad. He's already had his mulligan seasons. We gave him a pass last year because of the roster stuff, the salary cap. Everybody understood that. The first year, it was a disaster. We all get it. We're sort of in transition. No one's going to talk about firing Smith for 2021 or 2022. this is different. This is the year 3. Arthur Blank said this is year 3 of a 3-year plan. He did not say 4-year plan. This is the year 3 of the 3-year plan. Now, obviously, the idea is that you continue into the 4th year, but like this is the do or die year, and that's what I think maybe fans don't understand. Is like this is the do or die year, not 2024.
At the very least, it's a no excuse season for at least a winning season. Because again, if he goes 9-8 and misses the playoffs by a game, I think he survives. I think Blank gives him an extra year. He gives him a little bit of credit there. Because technically there was a 2-game improvement. I get it, but there's no excuse for you at the very least to not have a winning season because you had money, you made additions. Not only that, the NFC South is still not great this year.
And that was going to be my point. I feel like you have to take the schedule and the division into your evaluation for this year, because winning 9 games this year with everything that the Falcons have been gifted is not the same as winning 9 games, against winning 9 games in the AFC West, for example. Right. Or against like a murderer's row schedule. So
that's why I'm being harsher on Smith this year, because like it also depends on the nature of it. Like, we talk about these records like just the record is meaningful, but really it's like it depends on the nature of it. Like, say they stumble going into the bye, but then they finish really strong and they end up like at 9-8 and they just barely miss the playoffs. But the team is actually playing really well at the end of the year, and it's like it's not. We can tell that like they've made some changes, stuff is looking better, and really the team is playing great football. It's just like, okay, we scuffled, it wasn't great. Like, I think you could make a much cleaner argument then. But if it's like 9-8 looking like this, and they just sort of scuffle their way to 9-8, looking like they look now, that's different. That's like, this team is not getting any better. They're just taking advantage of this terrible schedule. Then, so I think there is some nuance there that we can't really decipher at this point. But to me, it's make the playoffs or get out. That's sort of my ethos. But I will leave the door open for, there is some nuance there. Maybe there is some way. There might be a scenario where you do miss the playoffs. Like, maybe they go 10-7 and miss the playoffs or something. And it's like, okay, are you really going to fire him for 10-7? I don't know. But like, well, so I'll leave the door open there. But to me, it's like you really should make the playoffs. Outside of like some really weird scenario with this schedule, with this team supposedly being better, with this weak division, this is sort of your opportunity to do it, or we need to find someone who will, because like we can't just screw around with this roster. Like, this roster is quickly getting up to the place where we should be expecting to make the playoffs. I think this year it's a reasonable expectation to make the playoffs. We should be making the playoffs. And if we're not, I think we should not hesitate to go get someone that we think can get us to the playoffs. But we still got a lot of football left to play. And I do think some of these issues have the potential to be fixed. Maybe most of these issues can be fixed. Like, the turnovers can be really random. I don't know if the turnover-prone nature of this team has to do with the lack of discipline that the coaching staff is installing, or if it's just really bad luck. The Falcons are only recovering 18% of their own fumbles, which is by far the worst in the NFL. It's like 10% worse than the next team. That's just really bad luck. There's no coaching that goes into that. Like, that's just random. So, like, some of this is bad luck, but I don't think all of it is. And we're going to have to parse that out over the remainder of the season. So I think there is a chance that they do get better. But it probably starts this week with Arizona. And I think if you lose this game, there's not going to be anyone betting on this team after this week. Like,
no.
Because, I mean, and I get it. Kyler Murray's coming back. This team's not as bad as they look record-wise. I don't care. Beat the Cardinals. Or, like, I mean.
You've sort of, losing this game to Minnesota sort of takes away any, like, freedom to sort of lose this game to Arizona. Because, that's the issue with losing these games that you're supposed to win. The issue isn't just you lost that week. The issue is that it gets compounded with the follow-up losses, because now all of a sudden you're stacking losses. You're 4-5. You have to win this game. And Kyler Murray's coming back. That fucking sucks. James Conner's coming back. That fucking sucks. You know what else fucking sucks? That you're 4-5. Maybe if you beat Minnesota, maybe if you're 5-4, then there's some latitude to be like, okay, like, Arizona is much better now than they were.
Yeah. Or if you didn't play with your food against Tennessee, you would be
like, don't lose to Tennessee. Like, it's
You've burned all your mulligans. You've burned all of your this was an off day games already. Like if you go into the bye at 4-6, there will be questions about if he's going to make it through the bye week without getting fired. So like, jeez. I mean, but this will be our last thing. I just want to ask because I personally don't think it's very likely at all. I would put it at like 5 to 10% chance. But Adnan, do you think if he loses this Cardinals game bad, that there's a chance Arthur Smith is fired after this game?
I don't think Blank does that. Like
I don't think so either. But yeah,
like I think Jerry Jones would, but yes. I don't think. I don't think Arthur Blank pulls that trigger at all this season with Arthur Smith.
Yeah. So we got and Eric, I'm curious your thoughts too. Do you think there's any chance, or do you think it's we're gonna ride out the season no matter what?
A different
you can put a percentage on it if you want, but
a different owner would seriously think about it over the bye week. Arthur Blank, I don't think he does. I think he gives him the benefit of the doubt and lets him at least carry out the season, I guess. But because again, this is a guy that didn't want to pull the trigger with Dan Quinn starting off 0-5.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't think he gets fired, even if it's a bad game this week. But it's
going to be a rough 2 weeks, though.
Oh God!
Like you lose
please, Falcons, please don't do that.
With the Saints coming to town.
Yeah, with the Saints probably having a 2-game lead coming in. I don't know. Maybe the Vikings beat the Saints this week. We'll see. But if the Falcons win and the Saints lose this week, then we go into that game for control of the NFC South. But and then maybe that could be the beginning of the redemption arc, right? Like you beat Arizona, and the Saints lose, and then you go into whatever that I can't remember if it's at home or in New Orleans, but whatever that game is, yeah. You beat New Orleans there and you take control of first place. Then it's like, okay, maybe people are starting to turn around. But like
shouldn't even be in that place, man.
You're Tennessee. Well, yeah, we can't go back and change the outcome of the games now, Eric. Unfortunately, I wish that we could. If we could, there's one in particular I'd like to go back and change. But
also like if you do beat Arizona and you do beat New Orleans, you will, on account of tie breaks, and you'll have a lot of tie breaks over New Orleans, you will be first place in that division. And I mean, who knows? Maybe 3 weeks from now, maybe that happens. In 3 weeks from now, we're not even having this discussion about firing Arthur Smith at the moment. We still have to see how the rest of the season plays out. But as we have learned over the past 2 weeks, a lot can change. A lot of feelings can change in the NFL very, very quickly because this is a game-to-game type league.
Do we care if they win ugly over Arizona?
Just fucking win.
Just win?
Just win, baby.
Win. Shout out to Al Davis.
I'm glad we're on the same page here.
Just win, baby. Yeah.
Also, like this Arizona team is not – there's no shame in beating them ugly. This isn't Clayton Tune lining up at quarterback for them this week the way it was last week.
And they're still a feisty bunch.
Yeah, that Arizona team is very frisky. Yeah. And I mean, you still have Hollywood Brown over there. James Conner is, I think, maybe the most underrated running back in the NFL right now. I mean, Kyler Murray is Kyler Murray. Sure, it's his first game back, but we all know what Kyler Murray is. Like he's
I don't know. Modern Warfare 3 just came out, Adnan. So
yeah, you're not wrong.
That could be our only chance. Yeah, that could be our only chance.
Gotta give Jonathan Gannon a little credit. Like the record may not reflect it and show it, but this is a bunch. This is a team that plays with some pride.
They play hard. They play really hard.
They play hard. You didn't see it this week against Cleveland because that defense is just absolutely phenomenal. But this is a pesky Cardinals team that they can easily get under your skin a little bit.
Yeah, and I do think the Falcons' defense is better than the last 2 weeks have shown. I mean, last week they missed 16 tackles, which I think is like the same number they missed in like the first 5 weeks combined or something. It was just a really bad game. Like, and missed tackles can be kind of random too. Like I'm willing to give the Falcons defense some faith because I think they've earned it. I'm not willing to give the Falcons offense faith. I think they really have to earn that. But I'm hoping that we get a bounce back game from the defense. Maybe Kyler Murray's a little sloppy, been playing too much Modern Warfare, what have you. But
you mentioned earlier as far as what we feel the team needs to, at least from the defensive side of things, I need to see more turnovers. If we're not going to be a team that's going to consistently get after the quarterback, I need to see. They're 24th in the league right now in turnovers.
Yeah.
And what, first in giveaways?
Yes.
27th. They're 27th in giveaways. 27th in giveaways.
5th, or whatever. However you want to rank it. Yeah, it's 27th if it's bad.
So I was looking at like bad being like top. So that'll be like
I think they're like fifth most
giveaways,
giveaways or something like that. Yeah.
Which is
so it like I need to see that from this team because and it's something that I've always felt I needed to see from the defense because this was obviously an offense. It was a work in progress for the offense as the season went on. It wasn't an offense that was clicking. We're halfway into the season. It's still not an offense that's clicking right now. So the defense needs to help out a little bit more. And by that, I mean, like granted, I don't know what more you need to do than get 2 fumble recoveries and give you the ball and
get a safety. That's why I'm not blaming the defense. Like
2 turnovers and a safety, and one of the turnovers, I put the ball at the 1 for you, and you still didn't score a touchdown. Like it's just,
they scored 6 points off 2 turnovers and a safety, not counting the 2 points from the safety. But like, and that's why I blame the offense for that game because it's like the defense. Yeah, sure, the defense didn't make the play at the end of the game, but like the offense turned the ball over twice inside the 20, and that the Vikings scored 11 points off that on the tiny short fields. And then they did nothing with the turnovers and the safety. So like
one of those touchdowns would have been a difference.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So like the defense played arguably their worst game of the season, and I still think it was the offense's fault. Yeah, they scored 28 points, but like, come on. Like if you watch that game and tell me you thought the offense was good, like they were good at times, but they should have scored 40 points. They should have dropped 40 on the Vikings. Like I mean. Yeah. The Vikings defense was not having a great day. Like it was just the Falcons shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. So, can't have that. We got one more from George Costanza before we sign off, guys. With $2, thanks, George. He says, "Will Arthur Blank ever consider going back to college for a coach? James Franklin is an interesting candidate. Is he still gun shy about what happened with Petrino? I don't think he's going to go back to college for a head coach. They're clearly willing to hire college coordinators or college position coaches. They've been willing to do that basically forever, but I don't think so. I think they're going after an NFL guy.
I think you guys are right, but I disagree with Blank like refusing just because it didn't work out.
It shouldn't be because of that.
Yeah, Petrino's an asshole. But also you made your bed with Petrino because you knew who he was coming into it. Because he did the same thing to Louisville before he did it to Atlanta. Yeah. Like he did the exact same thing to Louisville, and then he did the same thing, to Arkansas afterwards. Like that is who Bobby Petrino is. Are you going to let him in that one experience just completely dictate this philosophy for the rest of your life? And it's dictated it for 15 years, so probably he will. But yeah, I think that's stupid.
Now, I don't think he ever goes back to college. But I wonder if he'll be willing to make an exception for one particular guy.
Yeah.
Over in Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's probably coming to the NFL. So,
yeah,
but he does have a history in the NFL. Yeah, so I think it would be
I was going to say, like, he's been a successful NFL head coach.
Exactly, and then he won at this level.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
No,
it's not,
that could be
not
different.
Like you're not getting a first-time NFL head coach. You're getting a guy that last time he was in the league, he was winning games left and right, getting to the NFC title game damn near every year. Seemed like a successful guy. I wonder if he'll be willing to make that. May be the one exception where he's like, okay, you know what, I might.
Yeah, I don't really see that in the same like definition of it though, because Harbaugh was. I don't look at Harbaugh as a specific call. Like, sure, he's coming from the college ranks, but because he was successful, I don't really put him in that definition. I'm talking about like
first-time head coach
out of college.
He does not do that. Nope.
Yeah. Nope. Like I agree with you, but I don't like that you're taking away that entire pool of like options just because Bobby Petrino did this one thing 16 years ago and it broke your heart or whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, I think, shit, bro, I wouldn't be against it. I would not be.
Yeah, I think he should consider it, for sure. Yeah,
I
think that one would be different. Yeah,
and that's a guy who we've seen from this experience. He is willing to do everything it takes to win a football game.
Even things that aren't allowed. Yeah.
Because I think we're all in agreement here. Like he's coming to the NFL soon.
Yeah.
It's a matter of absolutely. It's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I felt that way before this whole thing came down. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, guys, this was a fun show. Despite the darkness surrounding this team, appreciate Adnan and Eric for sticking this out. And I think we turned it into a conversation that was at least cathartic, even if it was dark. Right. There was some catharsis here among us, and we'll see if this team can pull it out this week. But yeah, definitely check out. I'll have former Cardinals tight end Ed Smith coming on for Friday's game preview to talk about the Cardinals game. So look forward to that. We'll obviously be back for our post-game show. That'll be later because this is like our only non-1 o'clock game. So I guess it'll be like in the evening that we're doing the post-game. So look forward to that. And yeah, guys, before we, the
Bears,
go ahead.
The Bears primetime. The Bears and the Raiders have more primetime games, and this is ridiculous.
We don't have any. Yeah, we got London. Does that count? No, it doesn't. Yeah.
No, it does not.
Does not. But yeah, I want to thank our sponsor, betonline.ag. Today's show is, of course, presented by BetOnline. Want to thank Eric Robinson. He's at _Eric_Robinson, producer over at ESPN. Eric, anything you would like to plug before we take off?
Falcoholic.com, man. One-stop shop, as always.
Yeah.
So that's where you need to be. Yeah, I Falcons fans, it's already been a rough season. Well, I don't want to say rough season. It's been a roller coaster of a season for damn sure.
Yeah. Maybe the roller coaster will continue. Yeah, we'll go up after this. That would be nice. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Tough season, but thanks for coming on, Eric. We appreciate you. Always nice to get your takes when we can. We also have, of course, co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to let the people know about?
Yeah, what if we win or lose, which will very quickly devolve into a drafting,
draft takes are coming
article. Yeah, like the way it has the past 4 years. Yeah. But yeah, no, someone said it in the chat. We're halfway through the season, and we just talked for 30 minutes straight about a coaching change. So
there you go.
If someone had told me that back during training camp, I'd be like, God fucking damn it.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Yeah, that's what happens with this team, unfortunately. But guys, I'm Kevin, I'm Falcoholic Kevin. We appreciate you guys going into the darkness with us. We're going to come out the other side. Whether the team joins us or not, I guess that's up to them. But we're going to keep doing it because we love this goddamn team for some reason. I don't know. It's against our better judgment, that's for sure. But we'll be here. We'll be here talking about them every week in the off season with the eternal hope that comes with being a Falcons fan. And we appreciate you guys joining us on this journey. We'll see you guys on Friday for the next Dirty Birds and Brews game preview. And then, of course, for the post-game show on Sunday. Until then, guys, thanks again for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live. We'll see you next time.